We've been covering the interviews and the stories of the victims from the Epstein files a lot lately here on the channel. We actually have a playlist of all the victims that we've interviewed so far, or at least tuned into the interviews of. But today I want to dive into the story of Virginia Giuffre, one of the most known victims from all of the Epstein files. There is a full story to unravel here that we're going to do together. I'm going to give you my context and my thoughts, having become an expert on the Epstein files over the past few months. To do this, I'm drinking a coffee. Let me know what you're drinking and what's in your hand right now. Now, let's dive into it.
She battled the world's most powerful
I was just a toy to be used.
and dangerous.
I got out of it. It was an escape, but it was an escape with a happy ending.
But Virginia Giuffre kept another secret.
She was telling us, like, this is what I'm really going through.
Now, her family revealed
It's just like this switch.
her private pain
I have never seen my sister that weak.
and final wishes.
We want to make sure the world knows.
Virginia Giuffre was an incredibly courageous woman. She made global headlines for taking on and bringing down billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell. In the process, she also revealed she'd been trafficked to Prince Andrew. But very few knew of the private battle she endured at home. Virginia died in April this year. Now, members of her family, along with her closest confidants, are sharing never-before-seen photos, details from her personal diaries, and other witness accounts about what was really happening in her life. They say it was Virginia's final wish to tell the world about the agony of her last days.
That's my goofy.
This is how goofy she
That's my
was.
goofy sister.
That like sums her up in like one picture right there. If you want to know who she was, this right here, 100%.
Goofy and cheeky is how Sky Roberts and Danny Wilson remember their sister, Virginia Giuffre. To the rest of the world, she may have symbolised strength, taking on some of society's most powerful, accusing them of abuse and trafficking.
I won't stop fighting. I will never be silenced until these people are brought to justice.
But to these bereft brothers, she'll always be their Jenna, as they called her, to cherish and protect.
As siblings, I mean, this shows you like how much we loved each other, like how much we would lean on each other. And I think that's why we're here right now with you guys. It's why we're reading through her journals. It's why we flew out to Australia and did everything in our power because, you know, we loved her.
And your family.
Yep.
In April this year, on her remote property north of Perth, Virginia took her own life.
Now, there are controversies that go on out there saying that she actually did not take her own life, that it was taken from her. This is still all speculation. No one really knows, but maybe by the end of this, we'll be able to make up our own minds on that.
Her death ended months of physical and emotional turmoil.
I got on the phone with a private plane company to go get her. We were going to do everything in our power to get her.
But tonight, the distressing account from those left behind. Their desperate race across the world to save Virginia.
Now I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. I'm like, okay, something's wrong now. Like, I need to get in there.
And for the first time, they shared the terrible secret Virginia kept for 22 years. The truth behind her picture-perfect marriage.
She was telling us, like, hey, this is what I'm really going through.
The evidence you've never heard.
And they were responding to a 911 call, a call for help?
Right. She'd been assaulted by her husband.
From the sheriff to the DA, witnesses to a marriage marred by violence.
I mean, this girl dealt with hell and more when she was young dealing with Epstein. To think that she was then in an abusive marriage, it's just awful that she had to deal with this, all of this, literally throughout her entire life.
The bruise to her eye and her cheek area was one of the worst I have seen.
And in Australia, allegations of the latest brutal attack.
Wow.
And
She said, I swear it was just like this switch, like he just snapped.
But then the bewildering twist. Why, despite the obvious injuries, did police believe her estranged husband and not her?
And what do you make of Robbie's claim that was self-inflicted, that he did not beat her?
You cannot do what she did to herself. Her sternum was cracked. Her face was beaten.
Jesus.
This country is a second chance for a lot of people. For me, it was a second chance at a new life. I'll always be grateful to Australia. It's, yeah, down to its blood. I love it.
We first met Virginia in 2019. She was living near Cairns then, indulging her passion for animals and the quiet life. The cane fields of Queensland really were a world away from Manhattan, where Virginia was the most prominent voice in the fight to expose the billionaire Jeffrey Epstein and his twisted co-conspirator and girlfriend, socialite Ghislaine Maxwell. She accused them both of serial abuse and human sex trafficking, much of it here at Epstein's New York mansion.
Wow.
There's a lot of scars hidden behind those walls.
To go back there has got to be very difficult for her. A lot of memories popping back. Look at this.
It should be ripped down. It should be burned to the ground. Some of my worst memories are from this place.
But her most high-profile scalp was undoubtedly Prince Andrew, who was stripped of his Royal Highness title and duties. Virginia famously claimed to have been trafficked to him 3 times by Maxwell.
This is a real photo.
And that was the first time you met him?
And that's the very first time I met him. And that's right before I was abused by him.
And Virginia said she was underage at the time.
It's about time that we all stand up together and stop letting the perpetrators, the very strong and the powerful, involved in this case in particular, getting away with bullying us back into silence.
Now, I'm assuming that that's her husband right there, because I believe this recording of her on the television took place in 2019, but then 2024 or so, the abuse accusations were coming about her husband, which that may be him.
Times have changed. I think the tide of the Me Too.
What no one knew was behind the extraordinary victory on the public stage, Virginia was staying silent on a very private battle. She has since alleged her Australian husband, Robbie Giuffre, had been coercive and violent throughout their marriage. With her gone, it's surreal and unsettling to watch them together.
Fake. That's fake. That relationship is not real.
We interviewed the couple 5.5 years ago,
Wow.
and back then, neither gave any clue to problems of any kind.
I have that ability.
Instead, much was made of Robbie's role in rescuing Virginia in 2002 from Epstein's clutches. She was in Thailand, sent by Epstein to study massage.
Quite immediately.
Robbie was a martial arts instructor there at the same time. Incredibly, just 3 days after meeting her, he popped the question.
Yeah. Still remember when I won down one leg, old-fashioned style, and proposed. Yeah.
Goodness, how could you both be so certain of each other after such a short amount of time?
Yeah, that's the magical question. You just know.
You just know?
Personally, I knew he was the one when he told me, the way that your life is going right now, the people that are abusing you, it's not right. And you don't have to live like that. And he was the first person to tell me that.
This might seem a bit harsh or mean to ask you, but did either of you think that instead of true love, that this was an escape route?
It was an escape, but it was an escape with a happy ending.
It was.
Still
I knew
is.
she was the one. I knew her from the first time I met her.
I mean, that's what you would think, right? She's been dealing with all this abuse She has this knight in shining armor that she meets. She will do anything to get away from the horrors that she's living, so she escapes with him. Unfortunately, this guy also brings her different horrors as time goes on.
Even then, not everything was as it seemed. And in the years after, according to Virginia's brother Sky Roberts, their marriage spiraled.
This was the man that, in her perception, took her away from Epstein, right? Like where he helped get her away. And you would expect that to be like the Prince Charming story where you ride off into the distance and it's this beautiful ending. But it's not. I think over the course of years, it developed into this physical and emotional abuse.
In September last year, Virginia and Robbie separated. But it is only now that Virginia's allegations of Robbie's coercive control and violence are being made widely known.
Robert's behavior became more controlling. The stronger I became, the scarier he became.
We would not be aware of the extent of the abuse if not for Virginia's diary. It's on these pages she shared her painful and personal secret, her final words, only discovered after her death.
That's what I was about to say. It's too bad that this came out and that she couldn't share this with anyone, friends or family, before she took her life, or maybe it was taken from her.
As he constantly accused me of being unfaithful almost on a daily basis, monitoring me via the many cameras he has set up at Ocean.
Sky is reading out his sister's words, certain she wanted to reveal the reality of her life behind closed doors.
Not allowed to go downstairs when any mail was over, and that was every day. I became a prisoner.
Wow.
Did she explain why she kept that secret?
I think there was just this sense of like how strong she was in the public eye, but then she couldn't fight the demon of, what was going on in her own home. And her own home is really what her hardest battle of her life was. And we want to be strong for her. And we want to make sure the world knows her truth and, what she wanted people to know and understand about her.
Up next, the holiday that ended in hospital, and the courts issue a restraining order against Virginia, not Robert.
I'm not going to say what's coming to my mind there.
Why don't you tell me what's on your mind?
Inflicted, how did she run into his hand? I mean...
It's so cold. We run this.
In January this year, picturesque Dunsborough in Western Australia was the destination of choice for Virginia Giuffre and her estranged husband, Robbie. Virginia had booked this holiday home for the family to come together to celebrate their daughter's 15th birthday. Instead, according to the mum of three, it was where Robbie verbally and physically assaulted her nearly 3 months before she died in late April.
All right. This is a lot. I think it's time that we lower the desk and sit down. All right, that's better. Let's get back into it. I hope you're getting comfortable yourself.
She started to tell us what happened. We knew they were separated for some time.
Virginia told her sister-in-law and brother, Amanda and Sky Roberts, the alleged attack was her breaking point. They're sharing the harrowing details and these confronting photos for the first time, following Virginia's wishes to let the world know the violence she says she lived with.
He wanted to be intimate with her, and she said she first tried to laugh it off and, oh no, and she said, I swear it was just like this switch, like he just snapped. And before I knew it, he was just on top of me and just raining down blows on top of me. And she said that he's had her in like a martial arts position. There was bruising all over her chest and his ring imprint was on her cheek. And she said that she had a cracked sternum and a perforated eye.
Jesus.
Lynette Wilson, Virginia's other sister-in-law, was accustomed to seeing her as the rest of us did, unafraid to expose abuse,
This is a real photo.
no matter how powerful or wealthy. But following the alleged assault in January, Lynette discovered another side to this trailblazer.
How devastating was it for you to see those photos of her?
It gives me goosebumps right now thinking about it, because she's this strong woman, and that's, I've known her actually since she was a little girl. She's gone through so much, and she's always had this joyful, presenting outlook, and, to see in that moment her hurt and fear, it was startling.
It would appear Virginia and Robert have very different accounts of what happened here in Dunsborough, though both admit there was violence. From what Virginia told family back in the States, after she rejected Robert's request for sex, he physically assaulted her, punching her over and over. But Robert's version has Virginia as the aggressor. He has made allegations that after their conversation deteriorated into an argument, Virginia assaulted him with headbutts, punches and spitting. He claimed all he could do was to try and protect himself by covering his face and fleeing as soon as he could. As for Virginia's obvious injuries, Robert alleges she caused those to herself.
Now, I don't deny that maybe she was trying to protect herself and fighting back. But this guy was someone that was traveling the world when they met for martial arts. This is not just someone that's in a little taekwondo class. This guy was a true martial artist. And she is not a martial artist. There is no chance by any imagination of my mind that he cannot handle himself efficiently against an attacker, let alone his wife, who has no fighting training. So for him to say that he just had to cover up and run away, and then that she did that to herself, I just don't buy it, and I don't know how anyone could.
I don't think she could have caused a fractured sternum and caused the bruising that she had on her body. Just don't think that it's possible. And I believe Virginia and what she said about what happened that night.
Carrie Loudon was Virginia's lawyer and friend. She believes Virginia's injuries look like she came off second best in a one-sided fight. On top of previous injuries from accidents and back surgery, she says Virginia was already very incapacitated and required a carer.
Robbie said he suffered bruising and scratches, that he was spat on, and that he feared for his safety and the safety of his children. Why are you laughing?
It's just absurd. It just beggars belief that he could say that he was physically scared and threatened by Virginia, who had a full-time carer. She was unable to live independently because of her injuries and health concerns.
Robbie made allegations against Virginia's mental health at the time, saying that she was unwell, manipulative and unpredictable. Did you see any evidence of that instability that might have caused her to attack him?
No. I didn't see anything from Virginia that would have caused her to attack him or for her to be physically able to attack him. I just don't think it was possible.
Virginia called the police the next morning. On seeing her, they advised her to go to the local Bustleton hospital. Police then investigated Robbie for assault, but say there was insufficient evidence to charge him.
What did Robbie tell police?
Robbie told police something along the lines of that Virginia had inflicted these injuries on herself and that he hadn't touched her. That's what the police had relayed to me and to Virginia about why they closed the case.
So they accepted that at face value?
The only two people who knew what happened was Virginia and Robbie, and they believed Robbie's version of events over Virginia's.
Crazy.
Despite claiming he'd been assaulted and injured by Virginia, Robbie never sought medical help. He did, however, go to court and, as the process allows, was armed only with his version of events.
Since when is physical damage to one's body not enough evidence that you were assaulted?
The magistrate granted him a 6-month family violence restraining order against Virginia. It forbade her from going within 25 metres of her estranged husband or their home.
Wow.
Back in the States, Virginia's brother, Sky, cannot be persuaded by police or the court. To him, his sister's bruises are proof she was the victim. He says the gravest injustice against her was being banned from seeing or contacting 2 of her 3 children, who were under 18 at the time.
That shocked me. I was confused because how can you put a violence restraining order on somebody who has been abused? You would traditionally think that that would be on the person that is the abuser.
In the US, Robbie's allegations against Virginia have raised doubts because it's here in Colorado that he has prior form for domestic violence against Virginia. In 2015, Sheriff Dale King was part of the investigation that led to Robbie's conviction. Dale is sad to admit he was not surprised to learn of Virginia's recent injuries. So her allegation was that Robbie did that to her.
Right.
His allegation is that it was self-inflicted.
I'm not going to say what's coming to my mind there.
Why don't you tell me what's on your mind?
Inflicted how? Did she run into his hand? I mean...
In 2014, chased by the media frenzy surrounding the Epstein case, Virginia, Robbie and the kids escaped to tiny Penrose in Colorado. The peace Virginia sought in this one-horse town was shattered when, in a peak of anger, Robbie physically attacked her.
The dog had done something, and he got mad and grabbed the dog. I believe she said like in a headlock. I mean, put his head right here and started punching the dog. And she got down and she tried to stop him and she tried to pull him off, and he turns attention from the dog and starts hitting her.
Wow.
So this isolated property is one that you know pretty well.
Yes, this is where Jenna and Robert, they lived when they were here.
In Colorado, the authorities take domestic violence very seriously. That night, Robbie was arrested, removed from the family home and put in jail.
She had some bruising on this side of her, the left side of her face.
And immediate support was provided to Virginia, who the next morning met with the local district attorney, Amy Wren.
I highly doubt that was his first time assaulting her.
And why do you say that?
Just the severity of the assault, and most offenders don't immediately go to that level of assault.
How would you describe that level of assault?
I was surprised she didn't have any broken bones in her face. The bruise to her eye and her cheek area was one of the worst I have seen for what would be a misdemeanor assault here. I remember being shocked by it.
Robbie pleaded guilty to domestic violence.
Oh.
And as a first-time offender in Colorado, he was given probation as long as he underwent a 26-week course addressing violent behaviour and coercive control. Did you have any sense, or did either of them say to you whether this had happened in the past?
No. But there were injuries this time. And he was beating on the dog first, she told me. I don't think that probably was the first time.
Sheriff Dale King's instincts may well be right if Virginia's own words are to be believed. 3 weeks before her death, Virginia sent a disturbing bombshell text to her New York publicist, Deanie von Merfling, accusing Robbie of abusing her as far back as 2010, just after the birth of her 3rd child, and 5 years before his conviction for domestic violence in Colorado.
She wrote to me on April 4th. He was coming down off a 3-day bender and punched me in the face, which dropped me to the floor and continuously kicked me in the stomach. This man has been violent throughout the whole marriage. I did call the cops on him, who turned up, and by that time, Rob reverently pled on his hands and knees not to charge him. He always apologized and said that he needed help and would never do anything like that again. But as time went on, it only got worse. I'm shattered even writing this.
What was it like for you to read it?
I mean, I was devastated. To think that this is the life that she was living and that it was much more prevalent than anyone could have guessed.
Does it make you sad?
That's an understatement.
Poor guy.
What sort of a person did you find in Virginia?
Can we have a minute? Can I get up there?
Of course. Coming up, tracking down the Australian witness who backs Virginia's claims that she'd long been a victim of domestic violence.
It was clearly a very obvious black eye.
Try to keep his range short.
Before her death in April, high-profile sex abuse victim Virginia Giuffre made damning allegations of domestic violence against her husband, Robbie. She alleged to family and friends violence occurred throughout their 22-year marriage, but detailed in particular one assault she says happened while living in Australia in 2010. We've now tracked down witnesses who support that allegation. They're a part of the couple's circle and say they remember the time clearly.
She had a great sense of humour, very intelligent, and just a lot of fun.
It's crazy because going into this video, I think you and me, we anticipated that this was going to be deep Epstein related. When actually a lot of the terrible story here is what she was enduring from her husband himself after she'd escaped from the Epstein network. Now, I am sure that we're going to return back to what happened over on with Epstein as well, but this woman never escaped evil.
And I really respected her as a mother as well. It was just very clearly evident that they were her world and that she was just full of love.
While Jane is too frightened to reveal her identity, her friendship with Virginia all those years ago compels her to share what she, along with 7 or 8 others, witnessed.
There was one time when I just saw a mark on her face and I didn't ask anything of it because it was just like, it was a mark, and then it was probably about 6 months down the track where she had a very obvious black eye. I just said, that wasn't Robbie, was it? And she said, yes. She said it was. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I said, this is not okay. And she just sort of shrugged and just said, oh, it was just a little scuffle. It's no big deal.
A little
Her
scuffle.
first response to you was to minimise it.
Yeah, very much so. But she confirmed that it was Robbie. Yeah.
Did it look minor to you?
It did not, no. Not the second time, absolutely not. It was clearly a very obvious black eye.
But it was this social media post made in March this year that first alerted the world Virginia was in trouble.
Epstein and Prince Andrew's accusers, Virginia Giuffre, is tonight in a Perth hospital.
She is fighting for her life after a bus crash, and a serious crash which has left her with just days to live.
She had been a passenger in a car hit by a school bus, a crash she alarmingly claimed left her so injured she only had 4 days left to live. It was a private post Virginia accidentally made public, but instead of sympathy, the general response was immediate scepticism and derision. Doubt Virginia's brother, Danny Wilson, says was unfair and unfounded. It was an alarming post to read that Virginia had been told that she had 4 days to live.
So I spoke with the doctors, and they told me she was in very serious shape, and she had 0 kidney function. What the doctor had told her was, like, untreated in your condition with 0 kidney function, if you do not get treatment, you got about 4 days before your body poisons itself.
Did she ever try to convince you to come out for a visit?
She always wanted me to come visit.
Virginia did get the treatment she needed, but according to her New York publicist and close friend, Deanie von Merfling, the accident couldn't have happened at a worse moment.
I think they're having a really hard time.
It followed an alleged attack by her estranged husband, Robbie Giuffre.
All right, so that's the reason why she was having care. So remember, her husband said that he was afraid that she was going to hurt him and she was attacking him. But that was after the bus accident where she needed to have someone come and care for her because she was healing from that accident.
2 months earlier, in January this year, which resulted in a restraining order against her.
Right.
She was also banned from seeing her children for 6 months, something she found unbearable, as she shared with Deanie. What did she say?
She told me she wanted to die. She didn't have her kids. That was all she cared about, was her kids. There was no point. I called her family in the US and told her brothers they had to go there and be with her.
We were like, we have to get up and go right now.
Virginia's sister-in-law, Amanda, and brother, Sky Roberts, had no doubt about how serious it was. Was Virginia asking for you to come at that point?
I have never seen my sister that weak. I think that was the conversation that really drove me to be like, we have to go. We don't have a choice anymore.
Sky and Danny made a mercy dash to be by their sister's side, with Danny leaving the States first.
She had gone through so much. It was kind of like a cat always landing on their feet. You just expected her to be okay.
A fortnight later, Sky followed.
I think you can see it in that picture. I just think you could see the relief from her. Like my family's here. I'm okay.
In that moment, was that encouraging for you?
Yeah, that was very encouraging.
With the end of her marriage, Virginia sought refuge here on her isolated property in near Gabby, about an hour north of Perth. Despite being in the middle of nowhere, she considered this to be her happy place, out of the spotlight and where she could care for her beloved animals. But ultimately and sadly, Virginia could not find the solace she was seeking. On April 24th, Virginia was home alone. Sky had chores to do in the nearby town. When he returned later that evening, he couldn't raise his big sister.
I walk up to the door, I start knocking. I'm like, Jenna, are you in there? Like, everything okay? I'm like, she's not answering, like, and then I go to check the door and the door's locked. That's weird. Like, shouldn't usually knock the door. Now I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. Okay, something's wrong now. Like, I need to get in there. And so I'm beating on the door. And I was like, screw it, I'm gonna kick in it. And so I kicked the door open, and that's when I had found my sister. I attempted to resuscitate her for 45 minutes. I called the authorities immediately. And
that's hard to live with, that vision.
And she was pronounced dead about an hour later.
Coming up, the unthinkable. Virginia's distraught family blocked from her funeral.
Her mother deserves to put her to rest. Her family deserves to put her to rest.
Virginia Giuffre, the fearless sex abuse survivor,
revered for her fight against the powerful and depraved, took her own life in April this year.
It's hard to believe that someone would have a life that had this much difficulty in it. Now, we all know of people that have difficult lives, but it seems like her only reprieve was her children, which were taken away from her when she had that restraining order against her.
Her death is being deeply mourned by her family in the United States.
You got these beautiful creatures and animals that are so powerful, and I think it represents her in so many ways.
But their loss is compounded by anger. They're devastated they were not invited to Virginia's funeral. Her brother, Sky Roberts, says the 41-year-old's estranged husband, Robbie, held a private service without bothering to tell them. They say it's yet another example of the little regard he's shown them over the years. How much of a shock, Sky, did that come to you to know that a funeral had taken place that you didn't know about?
I guess the simple answer to that is that I didn't come to a surprise at all. I think because it would have been the right thing to do. And so, no, it wasn't a shock to me that we weren't invited and that we had to find out third party, which I think is very heartless.
Well, how hurt were you by it?
I mean, I'm very hurt by it.
No doubt Robbie can be disarming, as we found him in this interview 5.5 years ago, where his support for Virginia and her escape from the powerful people who abused her seemed boundless.
Her making that jump and leap, I always say, is the most miraculous. She took the leap. She's the one that learned how to trust again. So she's my little warrior.
You okay? But since then, their marriage disintegrated. It's been revealed Virginia accused Robbie of frequent domestic violence. In turn, he got a restraining order against her in January this year, and she was banned from seeing her kids for 6 months. Was there any chance that Virginia, in the allegations she made against Rob, exaggerated it in any way, made false statements, lied about it?
When are we going to start believing survivors? We're so quick to try to debunk that person's actually telling the truth. So the answer unequivocally is absolutely yes, I believe my sister.
The family says Robbie's apparent campaign against Virginia did not come as a complete surprise. He had long revealed his nasty side to Virginia's mother.
You would call her things like stupid, and there's some words here I probably won't state. I pray for you, who is that fiery wench, you're old, I see dumb people, I'm a unitard, dumb you are, what an idiot.
These are just some of the abusive messages Robbie allegedly sent his mother-in-law after commandeering Virginia's mobile. According to Virginia, he would often take her phone to read her messages and to send these outrageous texts.
He'd say things like, send us the dates, stupid, shut up, stupid. This one's pretty yucky. This one I think is very, very important because it states, and this is to my mom from Virginia, in her words, Rob's being very rude. The only way to try to hurt me is to hurt you. I'm so sorry. Please ignore his texts.
Quite disturbing.
They're very disturbing. And I think this is the type of human being he is. There's even one here.
With Virginia's death, Robbie's heartlessness was further exposed. Her family asked for a small amount of Virginia's ashes to be sent to them. Robbie has never bothered to respond.
At that point, the mission was get my mom what she wants. My mom doesn't care about money or stuff. She just wanted a little cup of her ashes. And we called and we emailed and we texted, and we were very careful about the way that we presented it because they've got people grieving on their end too, going through the same thing. But hey, do the right thing.
He didn't do the right thing.
Virginia's last wish was to have those ashes spread here at this wolf sanctuary in Colorado, one of her favourite places. While that wish has so far been denied, her family held a memorial here for her earlier this year. On their return, they're welcomed by a mournful sound they find fitting for this moment.
This place is very special to us. I'll say we feel like we can hear her when they howl. And it's just a very special place for us.
Virginia's family remains painfully fractured. Sky and Danny are fearful of losing all contact with their niece and nephews, who clearly meant so much to Virginia, as she wrote in her diary.
To the kids, every day that I don't see your faces has a little less light. The world is dimmer without you in it.
Her final goodbye to her 3 children is heart-wrenching, but it's a message Sky says is essential they hear.
It'll all be all right. You'll always have a rainbow over your head, angels by your side, and God in your heart. I'm here for you, here and everywhere.
And that was essentially the end of the diary.
Okay. And I think it's important for the kids to know how much their mother loved them.
But there's yet another battle for this grieving family. When Virginia died, it's believed she was a multi-millionaire, following payouts from Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Prince Andrew. According to her lawyer, Carrie Loudon, Virginia wanted her children to be the major beneficiaries. As she made clear, she did not want Robbie to get a cent.
She wanted to make sure that her kids were looked after and some other family members.
Virginia had an intended will, but unfortunately died before she signed it. Now her 2 adult sons are arguing in the Supreme Court because she didn't sign the will she wrote, she technically died without one. If they win their claim under the law, her estate will be divided between Robbie and the kids.
Robbie would be entitled to about 1/3 of the estate, and then the children would be entitled to the remaining 2/3 of the estate.
To be divvied up equally between each child.
That's right.
How do you think Virginia would feel about that?
She would be horrified.
Why is that?
The idea that Robbie gets money from her estate was something that she was dead against. She didn't want money, which was payouts, essentially settlements, from her being a victim of sexual abuse, going to Robbie, who had himself abused her.
I don't know how this would go. Part of me says the court knows what they did to her and what she dealt with and why she got that money. How could they actually give her that money? But legally, if they were married, he is due part of it. Ethically, he should receive nothing. But legally, he may.
She made that clear to you?
She made that clear to me. She made that clear to everyone.
Also leads us to believe her taking her own life. Wouldn't she have made sure that that will was signed before doing that to ensure that her husband didn't receive anything? That's a big question, because unless it was just a moment that she couldn't get at, that she couldn't escape from.
Virginia Giuffre will always be remembered for overpowering some of the world's most powerful people. But she also wanted to be recognised for her vulnerability. She bravely shared her secrets to be transparent about a life that wasn't always what it seemed.
I just don't want her to fade away, and what she did to fade away.
I just think she was tired. I think she was tired. And so many things had just weighed on her over the years, from the abuse with Epstein to the abuse in her own home, to losing her kids, to feeling like the Australian government didn't have her back and not seeing a way out to get her kids. That was her number one thing in her life.
This is a very sad story that probably went a lot deeper than you knew, than you understood. Many people know Virginia as a victim of Epstein, but did not know that she was a victim of her own household as well. If you want to see stories from other Epstein-related victims, I have a full playlist right here where you can dive into all of them. I'll see you guys over there.